what people will typically do is they'll look at an organization from, say, the window being a website, or talking to colleagues that are with Convergint now, and they want to know, how are women treated in that organization, and how does it look for a career path for a woman within the organization or within your company. And I think, nothing speaks louder than testimonials and just truly us giving it the importance that it requires.
What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Security VIP podcast, the official podcast of the security industry and home of nothing but the truth. As always, I'm your host, Taylor May. And on today's episode, we are sitting down with one of the industry's top service-based integrators. That's right, the team at Convergint Technologies prides themselves on making a daily difference to their customers, colleagues, and community. And with this year having its own set of challenges, the topic of diversity and inclusion has recently come into play and is something I believe this industry needs to focus on as we move forward. So with that being said, it is my pleasure to welcome and introduce the VP of Inclusion and Diversity, Mr. Yaruba Tate, VP of Human Resources, Laura Mueller, and last but certainly not least, the Queen of Convergint Technologies, Ms. Kelle Shanks, to the Security VIP podcast today. Convergint team, how are we doing today?
Good. How you doing?
Doing fantastic. Before we get this kicked off, Laura and Ruba, you guys do not know this, but Kelle Shanks has been known in my family for some time. She actually was a part of my parents' wedding back in the day. So not to give her that age range, but she's definitely well known here at the May household. So Kelle, always appreciate talking to you and spending time with you. So thank you so much for hopping on today.
Thank you.
And since we're going off the queen of Convergint, Kelle, why don't we just start with you? Give us some introduction, some background of what you bring to the industry. Then we'll follow up with Laura and Ruben next. Let's hear it.
All right, great. Taylor, thank you so much for having me. As you and I discussed, super important topic for not only nationally, but certainly in our industry. So I appreciate the opportunity to talk about it. My name is Kelle Shanks, and I am with Convergint. I'm out of our Dallas, Texas office. I've been with Convergint 15 years, and I've been in the security industry for 27. So readers were made out of wood when I started. Part of the reason this is so important to me is because, trust me, when I started way back in 19, whatever it was, there were not very many females. I had some great role models, probably 3 that I could specifically name and have in the past. But I'm still very passionate about getting that diversity out there, specifically for females, because that's kind of my history. So again, thank you for the opportunity, and I look forward to today's discussion.
Of course, Kelle. And Kelly's already hinted on to one of my questions. So we're going to talk about women in security because females in this industry is very vital and it's something I'm a big advocate for. So Laura, let's hear your background and your experience.
Sure. And thanks, Taylor. I really appreciate being part of the podcast today and especially talking about something that's so incredibly important to us and important to the industry. I actually come from outside the industry. I'm a handful of new Convergint colleagues who have come from outside the industry, and it gives us the opportunity to bring in more diversity into our leadership team, into some of our management team, and then of course our frontline leadership and our frontline workers. So my history comes from outside in large, fast-growing organizations, in a global organization. And it just couldn't be a better fit for me to join Convergint because that's exactly what we're doing right now.
Love to hear that. And I can already hear the passion from both Kelle and Laura about Convergint Technologies and what they bring to this industry. So let's start with Yaruba, man. Tell us your experience, man, and we'll kind of go from there.
So my name is Yaruba Tate, and I've been in the security industry for over 20 years. and with Convergint for over 17 years, and actually started with Convergent Technologies as a project specialist. And we call our guys and gals that do the startup and commissioning in the field, we term that as a specialist as opposed to technician, which you might hear more in the industry than that term specialist. But started off as a project specialist and worked on the operations side throughout the majority of my career as a project manager and a operations manager. And my role recently was general manager of Tennessee, and I'm currently in Nashville, Tennessee, and was recently promoted to vice president of inclusion and diversity.
Well, first off, congratulations, Yaruba. That's a huge shout out to you. I definitely appreciate that promotion that you just mentioned. And guys and girls listening on this podcast, all three of these individuals have a wealth of experience on myself here. I'm so young right now in the industry, only about 6 years here in the industry, but I've learned so much, and I've got to learn from thought leaders, professionals, whatever you want to call them, here in the Security VIP podcast. So definitely appreciate all three of you. Thank you for the experience. So let's talk about this real quick. So, you know, when I first kind of talked to Kelle about this a month ago, she wanted to mention this topic, and I had it wrong initially. It was titled Diversity and Inclusion. And when I spoke with Mr. Yaruba last week, he's like, "Hey Taylor, we actually do it differently. It's actually inclusion first, diversity second." So Yaruba, let's talk about that. Why is that important? Why do you guys put inclusion first, then diversity, and why is that important to Convergint right now? Why is that? Why should everyone hear about this kind of topic right now with you guys?
Yeah, thanks, Taylor. Part of it, when you often hear diversity and inclusion, typically those terms are intertwined. And when you think of diversity, it represents, the similarities and difference between individuals, the difference in their identity, and differences in their personality. And when you think of inclusion is more about how do you embrace those differences and how do you make those individuals feel welcomed, and how do you give them a voice at the table when either decisions are being made and or new processes and ways to execute business are at hand. So while diversity is very important, and we recognize it, it's the inclusion part that we feel needs to be on the front end. And as the old saying goes, words matter. We think that it's very important to state it in the priority that it needs to be focused on. And that inclusion piece, that feeling welcomed and embraced in our organization and supporting the values is on the front end. And that's why, we term it, inclusion and diversity as opposed to D&I.
Love that explanation. And one of the things, guys, that I appreciate about Convergint, if you've never been to a Convergint show or seen their kind of culture, or even they host these Convergint days every single year, and it's just a give back to the community. So they all take, PTO, or they take a day off from work and they give back to the community, the society in some form or fashion. I know recently you guys I believe that was last week, correct? You guys had a Convergint day last week. So that's one of the things I appreciate that. And going off what Ruber just said there, guys, the culture aspect with the Convergint. Why is, inclusion and diversity important to the culture of Convergint right now?
So when you look at Convergint culture, it really, we have values and beliefs that are in place, but it really kind of boils down to more of a family environment. Nobody takes themselves too serious as it relates to attitudes. Fun and laughter on a daily basis is one of our values and beliefs. And just that caring for our individual colleagues, it kind of has that family feel. And when you think about inclusion and diversity, inclusion is extremely important in any functioning, healthy family atmosphere, right? And we like to ensure that that's part of, what we're doing here at Convergint Technologies. So the inclusion fit and the diversity fit here at Convergint Technologies ties directly in not only to our values and beliefs, but our culture, which is alive and well today.
Great to hear that. And
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'd like to add to that, that I think that diversity in our colleagues brings different experiences and perspectives, which is going to broaden Convergint as a company as a whole, and also play a big factor in our continued success.
100%. And one of the things I'll work off with both of these guys just said is, I think Kelle will agree with this, is this industry is built upon relationships. And, the foundation of this industry started with that personal touch, that personal relationship. And one of the things Convergent does well, again, is forming those bonds, setting the tone, setting that mentality when it comes to just hard topics to talk about, hard discussions to talk about, and especially with the year 2020 and all the challenges we're facing right now. Now, this could not be a better time for a company like Convergent to kind of set that norm moving forward down the industry when we talk about inclusion and diversity. So really kudos to all three of you for that topic there. And let's talk about some of the challenges when it comes to this subject matter. Laura, let's start with you first. What do you see as some of the just typical challenges with inclusion and diversity, and how do we solve those challenges?
Taylor, the biggest challenge that we see with diversity in the industry is that the industry itself is not particularly diverse. So when you start looking at recruitment and you're looking for people who have a certain amount of years of experience, if you're looking in an industry that's not particularly diverse, then your candidate pool is not very diverse. And so it becomes much bigger of a challenge for you. So what we're doing is we're rethinking it, and we're saying, okay, we don't have to recruit with certain years of experience specifically in this industry. We can literally go out and recruit from any industry as long as the skill sets are transferable. So if we can find candidates that have transferable skill sets, could be military, it could be, which we find a lot of amazing talent from. It could be other industries that we look at, other educational backgrounds that we look at. We can bring them into the industry and we can teach them the very specific skill sets that they need as far as systems go, as long as they have those transferable skills that we find. And we just have to build training and support around those colleagues to make sure that they get the new skill sets that they need to be able to do the work. It's opened up a huge amount of opportunity for us to recruit from a much, much more diverse field of candidates now, which is helping us become a more diverse company. Once they come into the company, we've got to make sure that the inclusion is then there. Because as Yaruba talked about, without inclusion, the diversity isn't going to stay. We're not going to be successful in our recruitment efforts if we don't have that inclusion piece. And that's why Yaruba's role is so incredibly important to our success, to make sure that as we go out and we recruit, we train, we need to make sure that they feel included in the organization and they have the opportunities as everybody else needs to have within this organization. It's really allowed us to open up a huge opportunity with industry associations where we're looking at partnering with other technical colleges in order to build security education in local technical schools throughout the United States, so that not only Convergint, but all of the companies that are in this industry have a bigger diverse candidate pool to pull from, because we're going out and we're helping build programs that help educate people to be able to work in our industry.
I love what Laura just said there, because so many times I feel like in this industry, when you talk to recruiters just in general, they have blinders on and they only look for a certain skill set or certain years of experience, when really that's not what it's about. I get it. You have, experience is important, guys. Skill sets are important, but they don't have to be a part of the security industry. I came from a football background in college. I went to the automotive industry, and then finally I moved over to the security industry. And look, I'm loving it ever since. And I think I'm doing pretty well. Not to give my shout out to myself, but and that's what it's about. Just to Laura's point, you can expand that footprint, you expand that pool to pull from. So, Ruber, going off of that, man, what are challenges you see with this kind of topic? What do you think we're going to be expecting here with this kind of diversity and inclusion subject matter?
Yeah, to build off what Laura was saying, getting people from outside of the industry resources and attracting them to the industry. I think a big part of it is educating people, about this industry in general, right? I mean, I'm sure you've experienced it, Taylor, where somebody says, so, hey, what do you do? And you're explaining the industry, it's security, but it's technology and it's this thing. So I think, getting that messaged well and getting an awareness out to the public and making them understand what this market is and the pros and the positive things about this industry, I think will lead, to a lot more candidates that are wanting to get in and will actually allow us to get more people into the industry and accomplish that, the diversity aspect of it.
It's funny, Yaruba. Anytime I tell people what I do for a living, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm in the security industry. And they're like, oh, you mean like home security, like alarms on your home? I'm like, yes, that's exactly what I do every single day. You nailed it on the head. So it's such, as small as this industry is, it's so much more than that. It's so much more diverse. There's all different kinds of companies, technologies, etc. And Kelle, let's kick off with this next question. One of the things that Convergint does really well is interoperate different technologies and methodologies in their approach to the market. So, as we move forward here, what can partners and end users expect from Convergint when it comes to these kind of ideas and interoperate different technologies? What can we see from you guys moving forward?
Well, I would say back on, we as an industry need to do a better job of promoting our industry, because I always laugh that, nobody graduated from college and said, yes, I'm going to go in the electronic security industry.
Right.
So we have to be the people that talk about how cool the industry is. And it's changed so much since I've gotten into the industry, when it was basically card readers and cameras, right? And now there's so much more that is really more IT centric, right? So it's more than just doing takeoffs and how many card readers and cameras. So what we're starting to see is your bigger integrators are starting to bump up against your high tech companies. And so I think what's important is that we, as an industry, recruit diversity and inclusion, because the truth is those high-tech companies that we're starting to compete with do a much better job of recruitment in those industries. And therefore, they have a much more diverse workforce to give ideas. And if we don't try to become more like them, we're going to get gobbled up by them. And we're going to kind of lose our industry as we know it. So I think it's important that we all look towards that. But yes, Taylor, wow. I mean, even, artificial intelligence, that was like a cartoon strip back when I started in this thing. It was like, that'll never happen. So it has changed greatly, which means we have to change with it or we're going to die.
100%. It's crazy because, my dad's been in the industry for 15 years and he'll tell you the same thing Kelle said, went from the analog to IP age, now to the AI age, everything on the edge, to key fobs and card, to mobile credentials, to face recognition, to, AI, whatever, man. It's crazy how much this industry has evolved. And going off what Kelle said, reputation is paramount in this industry. So we have to look to leaders like Convergint Technologies to set that mentality, set that tone. So anything to add there, Laura or Yaruba, what Kelle said there? I loved everything she said, because this industry has definitely evolved. And maybe, a side question, let me ask you this. Let's, going off what Kelle said, how do we bring more awareness to this industry? Anything else that we can add or, put more on a platform to the security industry in general?
Yaruba, I'll take part of that one. That's one of the reasons why when we go out into all of the markets that we're in, which is I'll speak specifically to the U.S. right now. So throughout the U.S. and all the different markets that we're in, why we are doing so much work behind partnering with the associations and getting into those technical schools, because that allows us to let, especially those people who are going in for their education, maybe it's for the first time, maybe it's going back to school for continued education. It's opening up programs for them so that they can start to realize, what it is that the security industry is, and that there's actual classes built around it, and this is a viable career path for someone. I think a lot of times I hear, how did you get into this industry? Well, I kind of fell into it. I knew someone that knew someone. I got an interview, and I started out as a frontline colleague and worked my way up, through the company, which is how I would say the majority of all of our leaders seem to have come through. It was I kind of fell into it. And I think what we need to do is get away from that falling into it and legitimize it a bit more by having more formal programs out there. So when people are going for their first education or coming back for their continuing education, they see this as an actual career path for them. And then when they come out, they specifically look to get hired by a company like us, or someone else out there that's in the industry and they say, this is who I want to work for. Some people go to school for, let's say, finance, and they come out of school and they start thinking, I want to work for this investment firm. Here's the top 10 investment firms I want to work for. Or they come out of school as an architect and they say, okay, these are the architectural firms I want to go work for. Nobody seems to come out of college and say, I'm going to go work for, one of these 5 top security integrators out there. What we're working on doing is creating that career path for people, which I think will help drive a better awareness of the work of the industry itself.
Spot on. I can't remember when I was in college. I went to Oklahoma State, and there's never you go to the career days and the career booths. I don't see any kind of security integrator there or security company there. I'm like, because you don't see it, right? You always see the Fortune 500 companies, the big guys out there, but you don't see the security guys that we know here in the industry so far. So when I go to my next question, I love this question because I'm a huge advocate for females in this industry. When I think of the top woman in this industry, I obviously think of the queen, Kelle Shanks. I also think of Kim Loy. She serves on the board of SIA, as well as, the CPO for Acre. Laura, yourself too here in the industry, a girl named Kelsey Carnell with Access. There's so many top females in this industry. Before I ask this question to both Kelle and Laura, Yaruba, I want to start with you, brother. When it comes to females in this industry, God, we need more of them, right? I think we need a lot more females in this industry because it's just like the construction industry. My wife, she started in the construction industry, and I can't tell you how saturated that industry is with all these males. So she was kind of, just a female, and it's a male-dominated world, and that's kind of how the security industry was back when Kelle started. But I think now we're slowly moving that needle to get more females in this industry. But Yaruba, let's talk about this. How do we get more females involved in this industry when it comes to security?
I think it goes back, Taylor, to the inclusion, right? Ensuring that they feel welcome here. But what people will typically do is they'll look at an organization from, say, the window being a website or talking to colleagues that are with Convergint now, and they want to know, how are women treated in that organization, and how does it look for a career path for a woman within the organization or within your company? And I think, nothing speaks louder than testimonials and just truly us giving it the importance that it requires and doing things. And Kelle will speak on it some, such as Women Connect, an organization that we have within Convergint Technologies for that kind of thing where, there's formal mentorships and there's opportunity and inclusion, and all that is afforded because we put, the importance on it and we shine the light on it and recognize that this is very important, not only for, the bottom line, but as Laura said, I mean, if you look at traditional candidates, we want to expand and bring people into the industry. And if women aren't a part of that, we're on a path for failure.
100%. And Kelle, you won the Masters Award a couple of years ago with Convergint. And one of the things you said in your acceptance speech was be unique, be different when it comes to females in this industry. And I love that. I loved hearing that from you. So going off what Yaruba said, what's that message to females looking to join this industry? How do we get more females involved?
Yes, exactly. So my motto is be you, be unique, because being a female in this industry is unique. And in sales, it's all about standing out and being memorable. So use that to your advantage. So yes, getting more females in the industry. I feel like we need to change the narrative around women. When we speak to them, we need to talk about our industry being a little less blue collar construction and more white collar, IT centric. We need to talk about how in today's environment with the size customers and the offerings that we have, you need to talk about team selling, that there's going to be support there for you as the salesperson to take a team of people to take care of a really large global or national client. Women work great in a team environment. We also need to change the rhetoric and talk about things that are more intangible to women, i.e. healthcare, maternity leave, charitable activities that we do. Those are really important sounding boards for women, and we need to talk about those. And yes, it's important because when I talk to females coming into Convergint, they want to know, well, can I be successful there? I mean, how are you going to support me, right? So those are all the things that we need to talk about. The other thing that I think is important is women have a lot of innate and God-given talents. They are generally really good communicators, right? They work well in a team environment. They can multitask, which is so important if you're a salesperson, a program manager, or even a project manager. So, and they have a lot of empathy, and they're organized. And those are all great attributes to have to be successful, right? And we need to be sure and talk about those. It's like someone said earlier, it's not just, oh, but what color wire has to land on this thing? Who cares? Right? There's so much more that's important from a really executive moving the needle forward on your career and your company.
I love it. And one of the things that I love about Kelle is she's aggressive. You can hear that passion in her voice. And she's I love it. And that's another quality I think females have to have in this industry, because, you know, I hate the stereotype, but when you have males in this industry, when they listen to a female, they're like, oh yeah, she doesn't know what she's talking about. Well, you look at someone like Kelle, they're going to listen to what the hell she has to say, because Kelle definitely knows what she's talking about. She's not afraid to say what she wants to say to him. And that's why she's been so successful in this industry. So Laura, going off of that, are those some of the topics that you see in Kelle? Is something you, as kind of a mandate you look for in candidates when you look at, new hires in the industry, or new females in the industry?
I don't look at new females in the industry any different than I would look at a male in the industry. No matter how I would look at an able-bodied person versus someone who needs assistance with something. You look for someone who, do they have the skill set? Is their skill set transferable? Can they learn? Have they shown in their history their ability to, pivot when needed, learn and take initiative? Those are the things that we look for when we're looking for candidates. Our biggest thing here is, let's make sure that the candidate pool is representative of everybody, and then interview for the best people you can find for the job. So we don't set any mandates. We don't set anything where we say, X amount of hires must be, female or male. We don't say anything about X amount of hires need to be a certain diversity or not. We say, make sure the pool is diverse to select from, and then select your best candidates. And then make sure that when they come into the organization, you support them, and you support them through mentorships, you support them through different programs. Women Connect here at Convergint has been huge, and the ability to support any woman coming into the organization, and letting them know they have those resources, they have those sounding boards, they have those champions that are going to champion their career within the organization. And, Convergint we do a lot of things even beyond that. Executive coaching for our high potentials. And, so if it happens to be a woman that's labeled as a high potential within the organization, we make sure we put them on a path for executive coaching and different executive training programs that are geared towards women, to help them maneuver and kind of navigate that growth path within their career. We do the same thing for our non-female candidates that are in high potential. We make sure we build a training program specific around them. So it's all about the support that we build around our colleagues to make sure that they can be as successful as possible.
And this is why SecurityVIP is home of nothing but the truth, because all three of these individuals speak the truth here in the industry and here on this podcast, which is very important. So, and that's why people stay Convergint, guys, is because of the culture. They're being taken care of. They're being heard, input. They have the professional coaching, the executive coaching, everything that Laura just said. And it's her job to make sure everyone's happy. And she's probably doing a damn good job at that right now. So, definitely appreciate all the feedback there, Laura. And as we move on to kind of my final two questions here on SecurityVIP, we already talked about how we bring more awareness in 2020, but what's the overall legacy that all three of you want to leave here in the industry? I know I'm not talking about retirement anytime soon for any of you, but let's talk about the legacy or the message you want to leave with this legacy here in the industry. And Yaruba, let's start with you, man. What kind of legacy do you want to leave here?
Again, the legacy I'd like to leave is that I created opportunities And to Laura's point, and that's for, you know, people who are striving to excel and people who, you know, want to have a career path and reach their goals, right? And I mentioned at the onset of this conversation that I came into, you know, this industry, you know, from the ground floor, if you will, as a technician and an installer when I first got in. But, you know, I encountered many people, mostly at Convergint Technologies, that afforded the opportunity for me to, you know, put my best foot forward and do the above and beyond study and work. And I was able to, you know, achieve and still anticipate, you know, that I'll be able to achieve for years to come. But that's the legacy I'd like to leave, is, you know, be able to create opportunities for those who want it and are willing to put in the work to get what they want.
Love that. Create opportunities. I definitely agree with that perspective. And Kelle, what about you? What's your legacy? I know you're not retiring anytime soon. You have no reason to retire. I know you personally, but what's that legacy you want to leave, Kelle?
You know, Taylor, because I have thought a lot about this, I want to be known as a mentor in this industry, and I want to be known as someone that was a driving force in changing the landscape of our colleagues in the industry, and was instrumental in recruiting and making sure that we had successful professional females. That is more important to me than how many cameras and card readers I've ever sold. That is what I want to do.
Love it. I love that. And Laura, I'm sorry, you got to, I don't want to top each other, but, you know, Laura, that was pretty good. You know, Yaruba and Kelle, just set the foundation for you. Got to put the cherry on top now. Let's hear that legacy of yours.
You know, Kelle cannot be topped. I will tell you that. You know, I think mine's twofold. You know, this organization has such an incredibly strong history. The 10 values and beliefs that the founders of the organization sat in a basement 20 years ago and came up with before they did anything else. It matters so much to this company. So I think mine is twofold. Mine is to continue that, you know, legacy and tradition of those values and beliefs and keep them as strong as they were on day one is how I want to leave this organization. And the other, right out of the other side of my mouth, is going to be to change and to continue to change and improve, especially for me, the human resource function in everything that we do, whether it be talent acquisition, inclusion and diversity, learning and development, to elevate those functions for our colleagues, to allow them to continue to grow within their career and continue to be, you know, our customers' best providers. That is, to me, where I would want to leave Convergint, you know, as far as in the path of Laura Mueller. You know, once my weight goes through, I want that to be where I leave it, keeping those traditions and continuing to help elevate.
Mic drop. There we go. I love it. I love it. All three of these professionals just told us their why pretty much here in the industry, and I definitely appreciate that. So my last and final question on SecurityVIP, if you guys have listened to any of my prior episodes, is I do a 60-second hot seat of why the manufacturer, why Convergint Technologies. So I want to start with Mr. Yaruba, and we're going to go with Laura next, and we're going to top off with Kelle, since Kelle does this every single day. So, you know, when we talk about Convergint Technologies, we're going to put that salesman hat on now. Yaruba, if I was an end user, you know, why should I partner, you know, work with you guys when it comes to Convergint? You know, let's hear that pitch. 60 seconds on the clock. Let's go.
Yeah, I think it boils down to our mission statement for me, Taylor. It's to be our customers' best service provider. And then there's a comment, it's no matter what industry we're in. We just so happen to be in the security industry. And what that means is all of our colleagues, you know, will do whatever it takes to deliver. And what that means, if you have a specialist out on a site and there's something that needs to be taken care of, you know, they're empowered in making decisions right there on the snap, and they're always weighing towards the side of doing the right thing for the customer. So all the hierarchy goes out the window. All the decision making is local. And I think that is why Convergent Technologies is, we'll do whatever it takes to take care of a customer, and we're empowered to make decisions on the spot to ensure that that happens.
Awesome. Love to hear that. And Laura, what about you? Why Convergent Technologies?
You know, I need more than 60 seconds to go through all that. I gotta tell you. You know, first and foremost, if I'm a candidate and I'm looking at Convergent Technologies, I want to know there's growth and opportunity for me. I want to know that I'm treated fairly. I want to know that I have advancements in my career. I want to know that I'm working with the best technology. I want to know that I'm working with the best management and colleagues out there. Every single one of those is where I see us. You know, we have a set, as we've said over and over again, you know, our 10 values and beliefs. When you walk in the door, everybody knows what those are, and we live by them. We make every decision by them. When we were faced with COVID, I can't tell you how many times in those conversations it came up, what do our values and beliefs say we should do? Well, we're going to cancel that outing that we already paid for because that's the right thing to do. We're going to move this to this platform because it's the right thing to do. So, you know, working for a company that has such integrity and such support behind its colleagues, that offers those opportunities, unlimited opportunities for growth within an organization, is why I think any candidate would want to join Convergent.
It's a different mentality here, guys, at Convergent. Best of breed is a terminology I say when it comes to certain manufacturers. When you talk about certain service-based integrators, best of breed is what Convergent is, because they're providing that seamless, powerful mentality that is the reason why all three of these professionals stay with the company and build that culture moving forward. So Kelle, to top it off with you.
No pressure.
No pressure. You're a DFW native just like me, so I want to hear that 60-second pitch, even though we do sales calls together all the time. But I want to hear it on SecurityVIP and why Convergent Technologies is important.
So for me, it's the same values that we have that I would tell a customer that they need to be my client is very similar to what I would tell a colleague that they need to be successful at Convergent. So a couple of those are long-term relationships and successes, both for the client and for a colleague, right? I've had some clients for 23 years. And I think that says a lot about the relationship and the ability to build those relationships. And just as important that my company stands behind me to make sure that I maintain those relationships. So again, long-lasting relationships and success. It's about the people. It's about the people on the client side, and it's about the people on the integrator side, right? And that's what it's all about. And it's about being a family and working together. I think it's important that I bring new technology ideas to my customers, right? Because I'm out there and I get bombarded by new stuff. My client doesn't necessarily do that. So I play a consultative role, not a sales role, a consultative role about, hey, I saw this. Would this fit in your organization? Does this work for you? Right? So that's important. And then lastly, and I think this is super important, and I've always felt this way, part of my role as their salesperson is to help my client's career advance, right? It's important that I bring ideas to them and think outside of the box so that their management looks at them and says, great idea, right? So they move up in the organization. That helps me because they're higher up and I have more exposure as well. But conversely, that's also important with my colleagues. People that support me on my team, I'm the first one to say, hey, they need a Taking Care of Business award, which is a $100 gift card if a customer writes in. Or just telling my management what a great job somebody's done. Or, hey, this person needs to be moved over here because they've shown great skill set for this position. So I need to be moving along not only my team, but I also need to be moving my client's career along so everybody wins. And then I kind of feel like I win by just taking care of everybody else.
You know what's funny about what Kelle just said is she's had clients for 20 plus years, but she's only like 28. So I don't know how she's had, that's crazy. 5 years old. She's already had these clients for that long. No, I loved everything that Kelle just said there, and working off what she said and what all three of you guys said is, I quote this all the time. JC Powell, VP of Sales for Boone Edom. He said, Taylor, in this industry, people buy from people. and people buy from people who they trust. And just to Kelle's point, this industry is all about relationships. And to even to her, what she just said again, if we're empowering our clients and making them look like champions within their organization, it's going to further their career further on. It's going to make you guys look even better because you guys are those consultants, those advisors, not salespeople. And that's not what this industry is about. It's not about getting the quick sale, the quick buck. It's about providing the solution, whether it's your solution or not, that works best for the end user at the end of the day. So that's what it's about. That's the mentality we have here on Security VIP. So last and final, what's the contact information? How can more people get more involved with Convergint? Let's hear maybe a phone number, a website, an email. Yaruba, how do we get more involved, man?
Yeah, our website, convergint.com, Convergint spelled with an I, Convergint. And on there's several open positions across the U.S. and abroad. So please go on there and apply. And we'd love to have you as part of our culture and get you in the pipeline going forward. And just, Taylor, thanks for taking the time and making the time to do this. This was excellent.
You heard it first there, guys. They are hiring right now. So if you're looking for a great, phenomenal company, go look at their website, look at some potential roles. Speak with all three of these professionals because they are more than happy to guide you in the right direction. So thank you all for joining on here on the Security VIP podcast. For those that have questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to email me at info@securityvip.net. Once again, that's info@securityvip.net. Couple different ways to stay connected here on the Security VIP podcast. First one is to follow us on LinkedIn to see all the recent announcements and updates about our podcast series. Watch this episode of all three of us on YouTube, so make sure to subscribe to our channel on YouTube. And when you're on the road, tune in to Spotify.com to hear this episode of Kelle, Laura, and Yaruba. Thank you all three for hopping on today, and we will catch you guys on the next one.
Thanks, Taylor.
Taylor.